Europe's night of election drama capped by Macron bombshell. Now, I don't know if many of you are aware. The Yanks probably won't be aware or even care, to be honest. But basically, there was European elections for the European Parliament because they like to blarp as a democratic thing. All the chairs, like the people that are actually at the top, they're not voted in; they're hired, so it's not a democracy. But anyway, there was actually lots of wins for like the right wing or like the far right, as they like to call it. So basically, there's a bit of a shift in Europe, and I wonder what could have caused that. But anyway, France's President Emmanuel Macron has called a bombshell snap parliamentary election after being defeated by the far right. In the European elections, in a night of drama that overall saw the centre-right tighten their grip on the EU Parliament. Mr Macron made the announcement after losing to his rivals, Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella, and their National Rally party. France's result was one of the big gains that Europe's far-right parties had expected, and confirmation came with all the exit polls giving National Rally more than 30% of the vote, double that of Mr Macron's centrist Renaissance Party. But beyond France, the broader story of Europe's four-day vote marathon really belonged to the parties of the centre-right. Well, they say centre-right. It's progressivism driving the speed limit. They strengthened their majority in the European Parliament with victories in Germany, Greece, Poland and Spain, and significant advances in Hungary against long-dominant Prime Minister Viktor Orban. The centre is holding, but it is also true that the extremes on the left and on the right have gained support, said Ursula von der Leyen, the centre-right head of the European Commission, now on course for a second term. Ms von der Leyen said her centre-right group was an anchor of stability, but such a result required great responsibility for the parties in the centre. The far right did not enjoy as great a surge across Europe as many had predicted. In the Netherlands, anti-Islam populist Geert Wilders' Freedom Party came second, and in Belgium, the separatist Vlaams Belang lost out to the nationalist New Flemish Alliance. Europeans in 27 countries voted in these elections to elect the next EU Parliament, with the majority of voting happening on Sunday. The European Parliament is the direct link between Europeans and the EU's institutions. There had been talk before the vote that Ms von der Leyen's dominant European People's Party might consider taking the two right-wing groups that house the far right. But she made clear the EPP's only allies would be the Socialists and Democrats, remember I said it's progressivism driving the speed limit, and the Liberal Renew group that includes Mr Macron's party, so there you go. While the centre-right has a commanding 184 seats in the 720-seat European Parliament, the S&D has not lost ground, and the centrists are still third, despite a big drop in seats. Germany's opposition Conservatives were always going to come out on top, and they scored an impressive 30% of the vote. But for Chancellor Olaf Scholz's SPD party, this was the worst ever result in the European election, coming third behind the far-right Alternative for Germany. I like them. They're a good bunch of boys. The victorious head of the Conservative CDU, Friedrich Merz, said it was a disaster for the three-party ruling coalition, and he called for a change of tack. They are damaging our country with the kind of politics they do. Well, this was the result of a democratic election, so what the fuck are you complaining about? Like, the point of a democratic election is the people are supposed to be able to vote for what they want, and it seemed that a lot of people wanted the AFD. This is the democratic process working as intended. You can't go online and go, the people voted wrong. Boom. No, they just don't like you, and you didn't win. That's it. Like, the reason I didn't win any of my elections was not enough people liked me. And that was on me. That was nobody else's fault. I didn't do enough to convince enough people to vote for me. That's what happened. It wasn't, everyone's stupid and they all chose wrong. No, like, you can't just do that. You know, that's the, and I've seen this happen. That's the equivalent of the comedian attacking the crowd because they're not laughing at his jokes. It's not the crowd's fault that you're not funny. Right? Same as it's not the public's fault that you are a shit politician that they don't want to vote for. Bloody stupid. The AFD has endured a slew of scandals, mostly because the German state has funded papers to be constantly breathing down their necks, involving espionage, foreign interference, and allegations of Nazi sympathies, and yet its support still held up, because a lot of people are starting to realise that a lot of that stuff is lies. After all the prophecies of doom, after the barrage of the last few weeks, we are the second strongest force, and I'm telling you, the only way is up, said co-leader Alice Weidel. Meanwhile, a new anti-migrant far left Anti-migrant far-left party, BSW, led by charismatic left-wing firebrand Sarah Wagenknecht, also performed well, rounding off a good night for radical parties. In Hungary, Peter Magyar, a former insider in Viktor Orban's government, has proved a dangerous rival to his old ally, polling more than 30% barely 2 months after forming his centre-right TISA party. Mr Magyar told BBC Budapest correspondent Nick Thorpe that Hungarians had a new situation, a new opposition party able to defeat this government at the next general election in Hungary. In Spain, the centre-right opposition Popular Party defeated Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's Socialists, but not by the big margin that PP leader Alberto Núñez Feijóo, I don't know, had been hoping for. The centre-right leader said it was a resounding electoral triumph, but the Socialists finished on 20 seats, only 2 fewer than the PP. Another far-right party, Vox, came a distant third. Meanwhile, in Italy, Giorgia Meloni's dominance of her country's politics continued. Remember when she said she would deport them all and stop the boats, and then allowed all of it to continue? Remember that? I remember. Her far-right brothers of Italy polled 29%. They're not far-right. They're letting all the migrants into the country whenever they want. Polled 29% of the vote, defeating the centre-left Democratic Party of Elly Schlein by almost 5 points. Thank you to the Italians who are continuing to choose us. I am proud of the result tonight, she told her supporters. And in Austria, the far-right Freedom Party, I forgot Freedom's far-right now, FPO, was on course for a narrow but unprecedented victory in the European vote. In just 5 years, Miss Meloni has more than doubled her party's seats in the European Parliament, while Miss Schlein's performance pleasantly surprised even party activists. Belgium was holding national and regional elections, as well as the European vote, and although the far right had been expected to top the vote, it was the new Flemish alliance that came first, bringing in an end to the rule of Liberal Prime Minister Alexander De Croo, or Alexander De Poo. It's just not a real language, is it? Did everybody see that Geert Wilders tweet? We est hebben in serious problem. Like that's not a language. Shut up. He made that up. The far right has underperformed in Belgium, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Finland, and Poland, but it has overperformed in France because France has been hit really hard with the migrant crisis, who was surprised that President Macron decided to dissolve Parliament. It's disproportionate that these election results might push a government out of a country, he told the BBC. Although there are only a handful of left-of-centre governments in office in the EU, there were victories for the Green Labour Alliance in the Netherlands, the socialist opposition in Portugal, and there was a surprise victory in Denmark for the opposition Green Left Party, which finished ahead of the ruling Social Democrats of Mette Frederiksen. The Danish Prime Minister, recovering from a physical attack in Copenhagen on Friday, said while the right wing had made significant progress in Europe, here in Denmark we stand out. In Slovakia, the ruling Smer party, see, it's not, none of the European languages aren't real, Smer, it's not even a word, of Roberto Fico had been expecting to win after the Prime Minister survived an assassination attempt. That was the right wing guy that they tried to kill, and everyone was cheering it and all that. But anyway, Smer had campaigned against the EU's policy of sending arms to Ukraine and its green deals to tackle climate change, because one thing that I am definitely sick of is nationalists who care way too much about other nations. You know, it's starting to get a little bit tiresome. But it lost to the liberal opposition Progressive Slovakia Party, whose chairman, Michael Semeka, said voters had sent Mr. Fico's government a clear message that it could not do whatever it wanted. Fucking an assassination attempt usually wins you an election. But yeah. Now, yeah, there's a big surge to the right. Yeah, things are starting to change. I did post on Twitter, are we back? And all that stuff. But again, a lot of the people who are getting voted in are big fans of sending a lot of money to a certain country in the Middle East and all that. So, yeah, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's nice, but I don't think it's going to fix anything. You know, maybe at the next one they'll win even more seats. You know, we just need the problems to get really bad and probably unfixable first, and then we'll have a right-wing government, but by then, you know, the damage is already done. But yeah, there has been a big surge to the right. I'm seeing it all over the place. I'm seeing it in Britain, and here we've seen it in Europe. I don't, you know, I'm feeling blackpilled lately, boys. I don't really have a lot of hope for it, though.